This is an ad by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? It's hard to make time for the things that keep you healthy. But being consistent with self-care is like working a muscle. And when life gets crazy, that muscle keeps you strong. Therapy is the ultimate self-care. And BetterHelp makes it easy to get started with affordable online sessions you can do from anywhere. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of This Song Is Yours. I'm your host Simon Fink and today we have an exciting guest for you. Joining us on the podcast is old pop sensation Olympia, who recently released her stunning EP, Love for One. In today's episode, we're thrilled to have Olympia on the podcast to chat about this captivating new EP. We dive into the sonics of Love for One and explore what inspired its unique sound. We'll also discuss the theme of the female perspective that runs throughout the EP and get into the songwriting behind some of these standout tracks. Additionally, we also talk to Olympia about her collaborative working relationship with producer Burke Reid, known for his work with artists like Courtney Barnett and Jacklin. Now, full disclosure, we recorded this conversation with Olympia a little while ago before her forthcoming tour dates were announced. However, you will still hear us discuss them, and those dates are happening this week. For all the details on Olympia's tour, as well as more information about her and further information about this very podcast, be sure to check out today's show notes. We also want to say a massive thank you to Jerry for her help with today's episode. So, without wasting any more of your time, let's dive into our conversation with the incredibly talented Olympia.
Skies are highway, and I'm breathing it in.
Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Olympia. Hello, how's it going?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. It's very nice to see you again, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. So thank you so much for giving us some time.
Thank you.
Of course, it's such an exciting time for yourself at the moment. We were talking before we started recording that there's a brand new EP coming out this week for yourself. It is called Love for One. Firstly, congrats on this EP. How are you feeling with these songs now coming out?
I'm excited. Excited for everyone to hear the songs together as their own little piece of, a little chunk of me, I guess, and the art. I'm so proud of these songs. They were such a delight to make with Burke Reid, and every time I get to release something, whether it's a single or the EP or whether it's an album, it gives you that opportunity to be really present and conscious with the work. Like it comes back, all the effort that went into it and everyone that's helped on it. So, yeah, it's because, every time something's released, you've got to write a new blurb or do dot points about something and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, I can't believe we did that and overcome that thing or whatever. So I'm really excited about the EP coming out.
Which is I think a very fair and valid feeling to have. And it's funny because a lot of people will usually say, nervousness or excitement. And I'm sure, again, those all play into it. But it's actually, I feel like you've encapsulated it quite well in terms of it's an opportunity to take stock almost of what you've achieved. And so it's kind of nice. I feel that's a very wholesome answer to the question of the EP release. Does nerves come into it at all for yourself? I know that this is, where are we now? I think this is the first collection of songs since 2019. Yeah. Are there any nerves when it comes to releasing new music?
I don't feel nerves about these, but it could be that we're working so hard. We've been working so hard on the videos and all that, all the extra stuff that comes with releasing. But for me, the nerves are really nailing it down in the studio. once that's locked in, everything else is like a celebration and a complete surprise. Oh, I can't believe we pulled that off. And that continues to develop and evolve the further you get away from, I find the further I get away from recordings I've done. Recently, I supported Peter Garrett solo. So I went back and listened to Self-Talk and Flamingo, and I was like, wow, this is really, it was really interesting. I felt like an outsider listening back. And that's how I feel. Like, but the nerves come lifting the songs off a page and making them the intangibleness of songs. That's the nerve-wracking bit, which I'm also doing at the same time with new work.
Of course. Well, because and please correct me if I've got any of this wrong as well. I think this time around as well, not only are you the recording artist, the primary songwriter, I believe that you're the boss as well. Is this coming out on your label as an independent label?
Yeah, so this will come out on Reach Around Records, which I started, earlier this year. So it's an independent record label. And, this time I've hired a whole team and, we're going to do it this way.
I imagine that kind of brings a different level of excitement then, in terms of like you get to see it from so many more different angles than maybe previously that I obviously can't speak to. But, I imagine that now kind of, being the boss lady, you're able to go, cool, this is how this release is going to be rolled out and I can play it this way, I can look at it this way. So regardless, it is a very exciting EP. I'm stoked for people to be able to hear it this week. It is so super exciting.
Thank you.
I wanted to touch on the sonics of the EP if we can to begin with. I know that, most new albums or EPs are evolutions of artists' work, and I feel that while this one still had touches of Olympia, there was almost like a audible evolution or like a next step forward, if you will, in some of these songs. In particular, Creep, I feel like that one it almost had taken stock of what you have done before and then played on that in a way for these new songs. Is that something that is considered when you're going into the studio? Do you kind of go, cool, this is what we've done, we're not going to do that? Or is it just how the songs kind of naturally kind of come out?
Thank you very much. I love what you've said about Creep. Burke and I always say, let's not do the same thing twice. Mm-hmm. So definitely we're trying to do something new and explore. I mean, our primary goal this time was to have fun. Still somehow we made it very hard work for ourselves. But there were two things we wanted to try. Yeah, so always trying to do something new. We had these two parameters we'd set of trying to keep 4 elements audible at one time. And we were listening to albums made by the Dust Brothers. For instance, Dust Brothers produced Odelay by Beck. And a lot of the tracks, you could just imagine 4 faders up, and then they pull down the drum sample and there goes up a guitar sample. And, in the White Stripes, Jack White had this thing about 3 elements, even with the red, white, black, and sonically it came from furniture making, like earlier in his career. And this idea of 3 elements being a really strong bass. And there's 2 people in that band. But I know when I perform as a 3-piece, which is harder than like a 4 or 5-piece, we work harder and the audience always respond really well. So I love that idea of trying to limit what we're working with to make us work harder. And so that's one parameter we set. Did we achieve it? I don't know. I mean, like we kept coming back to it and sort of it was flogging ourselves with it. But when I came back from London to Melbourne, then I went into Mess, which is a synth studio that it's open access. You can become a member and you can use pretty much any synthesizer in the world. It's an incredible resource and you can record wave files from the synthesizers. So I came home and recorded guitars and backing vocals and every synth under the rainbow. Some I tuned, some I didn't, and sent them back to Burke. So I did blow out that perimeter rule. And the other one was we wanted the songs to stand up on their own. So I could play them on an omnichord or I could play them on guitar. Like everybody leaves I could do that. Try be good is impossible. So look, we always try to do something new, but this time we set ourselves 2 other challenges because I think Burke and I both love music and we love the art of discovery and creation, as in it is a complete mystery to both of us. So there's a lot of experiments that end up on the floor, or some experiments end up in the music as well. I mean, that's the longest answer in the world. I'm sorry.
Not at all. This is a podcast. This is what we're here for the long answers. Burke Reid, the gentleman that you're talking about, has worked with artists such as yourself and I believe Courtney Barnett and who else? Julia Jacklin. This is, again, not the first foray that you've had with Burke. I think you guys are long-time collaborators. Do you, I guess, remember what that first initial connection was like in terms of working with one another and working out that you do have like a similar mindset when it does come to creating and composing?
Yeah, I feel extremely lucky that we got along so well. I really landed in a purple patch when I met Burke because I also had to grow up pretty fast. That's when I was signed to EMI, so there's a lot of pressure was on the line as well. And Burke would have had a lot of commercial pressure put on him to produce the record, but still met me at my level, which I was just coming hardcore from the left field of like, I didn't know what a song structure was, and I'd only recently heard Nirvana, like just blindly stumbling through music. I remember we had dinner and we were just talking about music, and I'm almost embarrassed about how naive and how green I was about music compared to his knowledge. But we actually bonded over Suicide, the band Suicide. Mm-hmm. And
thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And we spent hours listening to Suicide and just getting so excited. I mean, Suicide inspired The Boss. It's through so much music. Like, they are such a significant band in music history. And we thought, okay, like what elements are exciting that we could bring to Olympia stuff. And then we thought drum machines and like CS80, which is a really early drum machine sound, beats or syn drums. And we actually accidentally stumbled upon the opportunity to use original drum machines as well. But that's where that came from. So that's the only thing we probably took from Suicide, the band. Mm-hmm. Was that idea of programmed drums. We actually mixed them with live drums, which has become a bit of a sound for all the Olympia records. But I remember that first night meeting Burke, and I'm so lucky because every relationship, recording, friendship, even my postie that delivers my parcels every day, it takes work, and you can really throw work down a relationship hole that's not going anywhere, especially depending on your personality. But I definitely have, I like to really just put my head down and invest in people, and I'm so lucky that I met Burke because it's been an incredible relationship for me.
That's absolutely awesome to hear. Well, again, you guys have done some incredible work on this EP. I was wondering if you might allow me to be a little bit selfish or a little bit self-indulgent. I was wondering whether you might be able to talk us through. My favourite track on the EP was the closing track, Leave Yourself Behind. I thought that was a gorgeous track. I thought it did a really lovely job of balancing sounding like a new song in 2024 while having this kind of nostalgic warmth to it as well, which I feel sometimes in music, if you're trying too hard to play on like a nostalgia card or sound, it can come across as not cloying, but like I think that you can almost see some of the lines in the sound, if that makes sense. Whereas there was none of that. I just kept playing it time and time again. So thank you very much for allowing us to have a listen to the EP before it's come out. But
I'm so glad you were selfish and said that, because that track has really divided people.
Interesting.
Yeah, some people have said it's strong and others have said don't release it. But
really?
it's interesting because vocally we try to do something where I'm singing, but I sing out of scale sometimes on purpose, and it was quite hard to do as a point of interest. We've never done that before, and it's something that Portishead do. It's also a Burt Bacharach, like a Dionne Warwick, Don't Make Me Over type of thing. And so, yeah, I'm relieved that you said that, and I'm relieved that I'm glad to hear that the song connects. Yeah.
It was also just like I found, again, beautiful sonics, beautiful lyrics, and kind of, this warmth to it. So to hear the word divisive being used for it, I find that really interesting. But again, each to their own opinion. So thank you very much for sharing kind of, I guess, some behind the scenes with that. The other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to the EP was I believe that kind of the theme running through these songs is in relation to the experience of being a woman and discovering who that woman really is in terms of finding her one true self. I'm curious, we've recently been speaking to a lot of songwriters on the podcast of they've written songs and not really known the true intention or meaning behind it. Like it's still very much them, but it was only with a little bit of time that the actual meaning revealed itself to them. For these songs, was there always an intention or a theme that you wanted to go in with the lyrical content, or was it as you wrote these songs you found a bit of a through line between them that they kind of had connections to that kind of common theme?
I always write artist manifestos before I go into the studio. I am really conscious, like when I'm writing, I create a little world that's quite private. It might be in my journals or at home. That like this is the intention and this is the world I'm writing in, and these are the artists, and I mean visual artists for this that I was inspired by. So for this, I'm so sorry about those dings as well. I don't know how to make them stop and you be on. But here I was thinking about artists like Hannah Wilke, who was a performance artist, and Agnes Martin, who is where I got that term, leave yourself behind. And she is, I mean, there's these whole long stories about why they've inspired me. She's talking about art, and she's saying when the audience see her work, she really hopes that the artworks provoke a response where the audience leave themselves behind so that they can witness the artwork. And I thought, wow, that's so moving, and that was really poignant to me. So while I am thinking of this world, and I was thinking about loss, and I was thinking about that photography project Juno, where that photographer has shot herself in all these different sort of honeymoon suites, but just on her own as well. Moments of spontaneity do come out, but it comes from this little big bus of ideas. So, like, for instance, the Agnes Martin thing where she says, leave yourself behind. But for me, that's really emotional. So these moments of surprise do come up in the work. And I really think in relationships, there's a point where it's about connection, and you want to connect with someone, and you kind of need them to leave their baggage behind a bit, or their ego, and be vulnerable with each other. And that's artist to audience, that's artist to artist, it crosses over. So the songs always have intentionality, but I would love to balance both worlds. I would love to have my artist manifestos, go into a studio and be confident enough to create something that's quite emotional and quite impressionistic and responsive and reactive, but within the parameters of the world. That would be my dream.
I find that so super fascinating. I love that. Has that always kind of been your process, I guess, in terms of songwriting, in terms of the artist manifesto? Like when you first started songwriting, was that something that you were aware of, or did you kind of come to that over time?
I think it comes from I watched as a kid Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead. right? Christina Applegate.
Classic.
And Christina Applegate, yes, the babysitter dies while the parents are on holiday, and she has to get a job to, I'm vaguely remembering the plot line. So she fakes a CV and becomes a 1980s fashion designer. And so I thought I wanted to be a fashion designer too, and I went to study it. But what happened is I met a teacher, Lucille Carson, when I was studying design, and she taught a subject called Social and Cultural Studies, which was about how fashion, how it exists in the world and how it relates to history and ideas. And I thought, yeah, that's me. So she, introduced me to the book Blood on the Waratah, which was about Aboriginal history. She talked about Hussein Shalian, who is a Turkish Cypriot fashion designer. And in one of his early catwalks, he was exploring the idea of what happens if you get a knock on the door and you've got 5 minutes to leave your homeland. What would you take? And it's the most incredible performance piece ever that you can watch. You can watch it on YouTube where the women, the models, end up standing on a table and pulling it up, and that becomes a wooden dress. Now, we don't wear wooden dresses to Woolworths. However, these ideas, and fashion is something that is so ubiquitous, right? We all have to wear clothes. So I love the idea that these everyday things have deep-rooted ideas, and I think music is exactly the same. So that was the most influential point in my songwriting career, and that's how I write songs. So, yeah, self-talk. Every time I've gone to the studio, I create these big bound documents, which I'll have drafts of songs, but I also take poems that have inspired me or artworks that inspired me. So when I'm in the studio, I'm immersed in that world, or it's about keeping the language consistent. And when I'm doing vocal takes, I always have photos or artworks in the vocal booth so that I'm pitching a tone, and it's about embodying a character to sell the world. But I used to be quite embarrassed that I'd studied fashion because obviously, that's not something I've pursued, and I'm not interested in design, but I'm really interested in history of ideas, and that has been the biggest force behind my songwriting.
I think that's actually a very handy kind of background to have. I can appreciate that, especially in the music industry sometimes when starting out, and maybe not so much these days, maybe 10, 20 years ago, that something like that might have been frowned upon, by music scene purists or whatever. But I think actually having the knowledge of, where certain things have been created, and whether it's art, photography, music, fashion is another art form, whether people want to admit it or they think that phrase is a little bit silly. Again, each to their own. But I think, that's actually a really fascinating way to have a start and then have that perspective in music, because I think that kind of gives you your own edge and your own ability to be able to have a different perspective on it. So I absolutely love that. Thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome. It also gives me a very expensive taste, right?
Well, even for the people that are listening to this podcast now, you're currently wearing, from what I can see, like this incredibly coloured jacket or jumper. So, like, if anything, it gives you good taste. You've got that going. I'm just wearing plain black, so you've got that over me.
Yeah.
As you mentioned before, you played some shows earlier this year with, I think actually we were very lucky enough, you were very kind enough to film some content for us earlier in the year. And I believe, since then you did play some shows with Peter Garrett. How did those shows go? I guess, how was it taking some of these songs out onto the road?
It was really good. It's playing solo is a really vulnerable space, and I think that that's my goal for this year, if it's not too late to set a goal, is to be more comfortable in that vulnerable space and not obfuscate, and try to put a veil between myself and the audience so much. But it is, I send many gushy WhatsApp messages to Burke, who lives in the south of France, when I'm playing shows, because I get to lean on the foundations of the work we've done in the studio, you know, playing Honey on keys or guitar. And again, like I sound very earnest today, but it's when you get to play the songs and you're playing them stripped back, the one thing about playing solo is you really feel the four corners of the songs. You know, like imagine standing up and you feel the four corners of your feet, which is something I love to do as well. So that was really lovely. The audiences were great. The audiences were so good. You can't always tell, and this is more because touring slowed down post-COVID or during COVID, impact of COVID, yada, yada. You can't always tell whether what you're experiencing on stage, whether it's your stage sound or how you think it's going, you can't always tell if that's translating with the audience. And sometimes it sounds great on stage and sounds terrible front of house, which means what the audience are hearing. And I can't control that as well, especially when you're a support act. So it is a risk, and sometimes you do the gig and you think, oh, that was really great, but you just can't get a read of whether it connected or not. But this was one where people responded really strongly to the shows, and it was really lovely. So it was great. And, yeah, again, I'm trying to be more comfortable in that vulnerable space. And you feel very vulnerable when it's solo, because I think even when I play band shows, I remember 2019 we did two headline tours of Europe, and then we came back to play Corner Hotel, headline, and Double J had live feed, so they were recording and it went live at the Wireless. So we were really gig fit, but I remember just before I got on stage thinking, is this enough? Like, is this going to be enough for the audience? Like, it has to be something we have to constantly, well, I'm always pushing myself, like, what's the next thing I can do for the audience? So where Dolly Parton, I know every night she performs the same show and it's the same jokes, the same timing, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Now, I admire her and I love that. Like, it's almost, if you're going to be simple, you could distill performers into one of two types, and one is incredibly formulaic. Good for them. They probably will live longer. And the others are reactive, and I'm probably more of that. I mean, I saw Anna Calvi perform a couple of years ago and you could tell she wasn't happy, and it was reflected in the performance, where I've seen St. Vincent play, and I'm not saying they're apples and oranges or whatever, oranges and oranges, but I've seen St. Vincent play and you can tell that's textbook formulaic performance, and they were both amazing. But I actually love it when the performer is pissed off, or they're having a bad time, or they're having a good time and they're responding to the audience, because then it feels like, oh, wow, we're part of the show as the audience. Like, we are influencing it, whether good or bad. So, yeah, I remember having that thought going onto the Corner Hotel that day, is this enough? Like, just as about to step on stage. So playing these solo shows, it's about being really comfortable, well, trying to be comfortable in that vulnerable space where it's just me and just the songs. Like, the songs have to stand up. I have to go back to the melody and not dilute the melody. Like, do the work that we've done, do it on stage.
100%. Well, look, I'm looking forward to, if there are some further shows from yourself this year, very excited to hear about that when they are released, or if they are released, and we'll make sure we do promote them on the podcast. Lastly, I just want to ask Liv, we would usually ask, I guess, what they're currently listening to. Is there anything at the moment for yourself that's on high rotation?
Yes, there is. I'm listening to Hot Snakes.
Okay.
Which is sort of a guilty pleasure of mine. But when I was coming up and I was living in Canberra at a time, and we all listened to hardcore music and went to hardcore gigs, and we saw bands like Baseball, who were out of Perth, and I cannot think of another single band from that scene, but Hot Snakes are an American band, and the guitarist died last year, and it's very guitar rock, surf rock. Yeah, that's what I'm listening to.
Look, if anything, I love the absolute eclectic nature of all the kind of references, because it shows the the broad scope and taste that you have in music. So I absolutely love that. Liv, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, and congrats again on the brand new Olympia EP. It is called Love for One. It is out this week. I'll make sure all links in the podcast have where you can buy it, where you can see you live. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you're taking care of a senior loved one, then you know it can be hard. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason why 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Experienced senior caregivers can help with everything from meal prep to taking your loved one to doctor's appointments. And every caregiver you hire is background checked. So important for peace of mind. Find full-time, part-time, or even occasional help that fits your family's schedule and budget. Get the support you need with Care.com.